Hello, everyone. In the world of startup, there are few stories that shines as brightly as that of Airbnb. Back in 2008, this disruptor in the hospitality business raised 600K in its angel round after their stint at Y Combinator. But what truly set them apart was their pitch deck. It was so impactful, it has become a guiding light for aspiring entrepreneurs even today. So, in this lesson, we will analyze their pitch deck. So let's go slide by slide through their pitch deck's creativity and see why it is still an inspiration for successful fundraising. So this is the first slide. As you see, the slide is simple, but provides extremely concise and easily accessible information. This sentence here, book rooms with local rather than the hotel, lets the audience comprehend the offering of the business in few seconds. So for you, this is the guide. Like for here, the main point of the slide is to present the offering. What does the company do? Another thing to notice here that this sentence is short and free of industry jargons. As you know, a large percentage of the potential investors would come from different industry, and some of them would not even be familiar with the startup's jargon. So what actually happened, they would often judge your company from the standpoint of a potential customer rather than an industry insider. So use as little jargon as possible. Moving to the next slide, it is about the problem. Again, there is a short sentence and the use of bold to emphasize the problem of the target customer that they are solving. So the problem should be as clear as possible. Complex statements and assumptions do not hold a lot of significance here. And the third slide here is the solution. You can notice here one thing, they do not start describing the feature of their unique solution, but they emphasize the benefit of using the solution. So the key thing here, the feature could change and are maybe not important for such a high level overview. So the benefit needs to provide real value of the target customer. So when talking about the problem and solution, the most important is to put forward realistically sounding assumption. Later into the presentation, your job is to defend those assumptions and to provide convincing evidence. Moving on to the fourth slide, it is about market validation. So here, what they did, they pull out numbers that support their claim from similar services. As you see here, they mention the housing listing of Craigslist and couchsurfing.com's user. One thing to remember, investors always love numbers and look for numbers. So these numbers support the hypothesis that the market they are targeting that actually exists. So moving on to the fifth slide is about the market size. Again, the number. So one thing to tell you there, startups are a risky business. As you know, more than 90% of the startups fail. Because of this, being ambitious is a requirement here. Another thing here, the venture capitalists and angel investors are looking for highly scalable businesses. Because of this, the main goal of this slide is to convince investors that in the long run, the company has a theoretical chance to be a unicorn. So what Airbnb did here, Airbnb in this case, they achieved this by starting from a huge total available market, all trips booked worldwide. Then they shortened this to a serviceable available market, which in their case is budget and online. And lastly, they assume a 15% market share of these available market to reach 84 million trips booked at Airbnb. So let's move on to this next slide. Slide 6 is about the products. Here again, they shows how the service works. They do not go into detail. They just list features and some of the requirements. The information is easily understandable at a glance here, and the user flow of the platform is very condensed into 3 steps, so it is easily understandable. Then the seventh slide, the business model. This is about how is the business going to make money. There's another interesting and important slide for the investors. In the case of Airbnb, a 10% commission. They use their market size projection to calculate an achievable revenue of $2.1 billion. So having this number in their head, investors can easily make a rough estimate of the value of the company in case it is successful. Just to inform one thing here, tech companies normally trade at a revenue multiple of 10x here, which means that if Airbnb generally achieved $2.1 billion in sales each year, the company might be valued more than $20 billion. Moving on to the next slide, which is adoption strategy, where the key question is, how are they going to attract new customers? In their case, they actually would publicize event, build partnership, and cross-post their ad on Craigslist. So their main intention is using the established platforms like Craigslist user base, they will drive traffic to their website. And another thing here, in the past, the Craigslist dual posting method will be the key to Airbnb's early stage development. Then here at the ninth slide, it is about competition. So they have listed some of their key competitors here, and they wanted to show why they are different than others. One thing to mention here that if you are mentioning that there is no competition, that means the investor would conclude that there is simply no need for that particular offering or the product or the services. Otherwise, at least some of the companies would be doing something similar. So the goal of this slide is to showcase that while there is competition, but you are significantly differentiate to carve out your own niche in the market. You can notice here that Airbnb is claiming that they are the cheapest online solution here. So moving on to the next slide, that is competitive advantage. This is one of the slide for me. This is one of the busiest slide in the whole pitch deck. And it shows 6 different competitive advantages here. In case you choose to do this in your own presentation, make sure to spend enough time on this slide while presenting and also touch on each of the point. If you do not have time to do this, it is better to focus on 2-3 biggest competitive advantages. You can notice one thing here, how Airbnb puts the advantage in context. For example, here, the monetary host incentive is an advantage over couchsurfing.com. So moving on to the next slide, which is the 11th slide of this day, is about the team. As you see here, a brief snapshot of the key team members here of Airbnb. Investors actually look for different skills here, like technical, marketing, and domain knowledge. One of the things you can do while your presentation for this team, you can mention 1 or 2 sentences on each of the founder. As I mentioned earlier, that the investors are trying to quickly judge if the founding team have the needed skill to pull off what they are aiming to or not. Then this is the 12th slide, which is they mention about the press. Basically, this is not mandatory for all, but as they got some peers from different presses, so they have added it here. So the 13th slide here is user testimonial, which is another form of validation. But the key thing here, the testimonial also showcases something else that is very important here. The founder have interacted with the customer. This is one of the key things always an investor look for. This actually helps them understand the need and problems of their target market and slowly but surely make the needed adjustment to find product market fit. And the last slide, which is the financial one. Normally, we can say this is the asking slide, what the startup are asking from the investor. You see here, Airbnb was looking for $500,000 that would support the business for 12 months and help them grow to 80,000 transactions, translating to $2 million in yearly revenue. One of the things to notice here that they do not say that $500,000 would be enough to make Airbnb a unicorn. It is a seed round, and the goal is clearly set at $2 million per year. So silently, they actually wanted to mention that the business could become self-sustaining, or the more likely outcome, it could raise further venture capital rounds to boost growth. So the choice of words showcase that the focus is not on what the company and founders need, but rather on what they represent for their investors. An opportunity to invest $500,000 in a business that has a potential to be worth billions. Remember one thing, investors do not invest out of their desire to help struggling entrepreneurs. The main driver is the financial incentive. So this is all about this 14-slide pitch deck. Obviously, it is a great example and inspiration for the entrepreneurs over the years. But few things to consider. One thing is 14 slides are okay for 10 to 15-minute presentation, but a lot of startup events like accelerator program, incubation program, or the pitching competition, they restrict their participant to 2 to 5 minutes. If this is the case, what I would suggest that you should shorten down the presentation significantly. Another thing is you should consider the main topics like problem, solution, upside, validation, traction, team, and the key thing, the ask. This means that it is realistic to reduce the slide number from 8 to 10. But again, I just want to mention that to do good in any of the pitching, the best possible advice I would give that do practice a lot. So let's say if they have given you 3 to 5 minutes, so make sure you have the desire that I will complete the pitching, entire pitching with all these important points in those time or even less. So like Airbnb, learn from different big companies pitching, learn from the masters, craft your story, communicate with clarity, and dream big. This has been the case study of Airbnb's legendary pitch deck, a guide for the age.